everybody, to the Inner Carnivore Podcast, episode 25, with my guest, Girl Gone Carnivore. Before I get into it with her, whether you guys are streaming us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, or watching the full video on YouTube, if you could do a huge favor, like, subscribe, leave a review, comment, share it with your friends. It helps immeasurably, and appreciate every time that you guys do that. Jumping right in, how are you doing, B?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, JT?
I'm doing good. We had just talked about me trying to figure out this silly time zone change and the fact that I do not change for daylight savings, not time zones, daylight savings. I do not change for daylight savings, but I have to mentally adjust for everybody else who does, and it's just an absolute disaster. And I think we should get rid of daylight savings altogether.
I agree. I'm right there.
Which is funny, though, because if we did get I actually heard the reason that we have not gotten rid of daylight savings is because nobody can agree to whether we should stick with the daylight savings time or stick with the non-daylight savings time.
Oh, I would say stick with the daylight savings time. Pretty animated, right? I mean, the initial reason why we did this was farmers, right? Because they needed the extra daylight, but now we have electricity. I see why we still do this, but they just and stick with it. I don't really care which. Let's just pick something.
I completely agree. I honestly, I'm so out of touch with it that I didn't even know the time change happened. And I was talking to people, I was like, yeah, this is going to mess me up. And people are like, what are you talking about? It already changed. And I was like, wait, what? And then not all clocks are set up for Arizona. So I have some that will change daylight savings, but they changed the wrong way. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't have changed it all. What is happening right now? So I have a clock in my workout garage, and I've actually done this a couple times where I look at it and I'm like, oh, shoot, it is 3 o'clock and I had to be somewhere at 2:30, and I'm scrambling around. And then I look at my phone and I'm like, wait, what? So it's very confusing.
Yeah.
But we got it settled. I'm very glad you're on the show. I've actually followed you for a really long time. I think you were one of the first carnivore people that I followed. And way back in the day, I feel like I've been doing this forever now.
Yeah.
So what's your story? How did you start carnivore? How did you get going in this crazy way of eating that's going to give us all colon cancer and heart disease?
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? So my journey essentially started probably around the time I was 13 years old. I've always been looking for the right diet. I've always wanted to find food that worked for me. And truly, since I was a teenager. And so, of course, by the time I was 16, I was diagnosed with GERD. And instead of my doctor talking about nutrition, he handed me pills. And so essentially, I took medication for severe heartburn, indigestion. Of course, with that, I also had other gut issues. I developed allergies that I hadn't had when I was younger, but over time, I just couldn't stand pollen. I couldn't really breathe. I was having a hard time breathing. I'd constantly get postnasal drip. So around the time I was 26, I was introduced to the paleo diet, and I was like, oh, this is right around the time too that I started CrossFitting. I started CrossFitting in 2011. So I was introduced to paleo diet. I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. I definitely didn't have as many heartburn issues, things like that, but I still had gut issues. I still had inflammation issues. But from about 20 for another 10 years, I essentially was gluten-free, tried all of those things, but still had issues with retaining weight in my stomach, which made me very self-conscious. I'd yo-yo diet. I'd go super clean, but I was still eating vegetables and all the things that you're told that you're supposed to eat, and nuts and seeds actually, and which is part of paleo. And then I went and saw my massage therapist, and it had been a while because I had taken a little break from CrossFit. So I hadn't really needed to go. And so I started, I wanted to start crossfitting again, but I just started doing some lifting in my garage, and, I was sore. So I was like, well, I'm going to go see my massage therapist. And when I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, Paul, like you look like a whole different person. I was like, what have you been doing? And he just looks like so live. I mean, not that he wasn't like that before, but I mean, I just was like, wow. And he's like, oh, I started the carnivore diet. And I'm like, what? I was like, carnivore diet? He's like, all I eat is meat. And I'm like, shut up. I was like, no, you don't. You don't just eat meat. And that's why I totally understand when I tell people I just eat meat, they're like, what? Shut up. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But yeah, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I was like, well, of course, one of the first questions is, well, how do you go to the bathroom? Right? Like, I am with, right? Over here, like, he's like, oh, I go just fine and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, guy, like, all right. So I couldn't help, constantly thinking, like, wow. I mean, just like, I couldn't believe like how he looked, how enthusiastic he was. And so May of 2022, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it for a month, just like how I did like a paleo challenge, like a whole 30. I was like, I'm just going to do a 30-day carnivore diet. I'm just going to eat meat. And I was very, very strict about it. Like, I didn't do any dairy. The only thing I did do, which I probably shouldn't have done, and I recommend people don't do, is I still drank coffee, which I think gave me some extraneous gut issues that I probably wouldn't have had I not done that. But I'm a mother of 4, so take away my coffee, take away my life. So like, I'm just gonna work through this. And then so I was strict for like 3 months. Actually, I felt so good after the first month. I'm just gonna keep rolling with this. I was like, I'm just gonna keep going. And about 3 months in, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start introducing some foods back in, and just to see how I feel. So I did. The first thing that I did was dairy, and I actually ended up having better. Uh, my gut was a lot better. I felt a lot better. Of course, it's a balance, right? And you start to figure that out as you're doing carnivore. You find out like what you can really tolerate, how much you should be tolerating. And then like just over time, it evolves where you are so in tune with your body. And you're just so in tune, even like with your hormones, your hormone cycle, that I was like, okay, I know when I need to eat. I know what I need to eat. I don't count anything. I don't measure anything. And essentially I just stick to the foods that make me feel the best and that I enjoy eating. And I've been able to essentially, quote unquote, maintain my weight. I don't weigh myself either, unless if I go to the doctor, they'll weigh me, but I never weigh myself at home. I just don't really believe in it. I know that I've gained weight because I've gained muscle, because I'm training 5-6 days a week. So to me, weight is arbitrary. It really just depends on, your body fat, how you feel, how your clothes feel, how you feel, and I think that that's what carnivore has done for me, is it's really helped me just mentally, physically, even spiritually on a certain level, find my space and help maintain what I think is a very natural lifestyle. Most people look at us crazy, but to me, I mean, I don't think other people are crazy, so much as they just, they haven't swallowed the red pill yet. I mean, it's just, um, it's really fascinating, and I recommend that people try it like 30 days, and again, and it's not for everybody. I've talked to people that are like, well, I introduced vegetables back into my diet and I feel just fine. And I'm like, good for you. Makes me feel terrible, but good for you. It's just, it's not as dogmatic as what people might make it out to be. I remember your post actually where you're like, I just wanted a bun. Like, I just did it. I did it. And I'm like, good for my one girlfriend makes sourdough bread, and when I go up there, I want to make it with her and just go through that whole process. And I'll try probably some of it. And if it makes me feel awful, then I won't eat it again, because I just really, me, breads, any kind, it just really doesn't sit well with me. But I haven't really experimented post carnivore either. So who knows if like maybe every once in a while I can indulge and do, but like I love my steaks, my burgers, my carnivore crispies. I'm good.
I think that highlights, like, there's two main points that I see over and over and over and over again. So many people are searching for so many diets that they try vegan and vegetarian. Like, I have talked to hundreds, probably thousands if you count, like, comments and stuff, thousands of people who have tried vegan. And it's not just, as vegans say, oh, well, you didn't do it right. Like, I've interviewed people who have been vegan for 10 years. Like, I interviewed a gentleman his episode's going to come out soon, and he was strict vegan for 6 years, to the point that he was in the hospital and he thought he was going to die. He's like, he was so malnourished. And they're like, you didn't do it right. And he's like, I believe it was his girlfriend at the time. He's like, my girlfriend was a vegan chef. Like, we ate well. Like, we didn't, like, this is not I just didn't eat the right foods. And so many people try vegan in that attempt to find the right diet. And it's unfortunate, because if you go on Google right now, right, what diets, right? And you can go to the USA Today, like, list of top 10 diets, and you'll see like Mediterranean, which is like a breath away from going vegan. And you'll see vegetarian, and you'll see like all of these, and you'll hear stuff about blue zones, and literally everybody is going to tell you to do some sort of a lot of plants. And so it's natural for people to go, well, I'm just going to try vegan, right? It works for everybody else. Everybody says it's great. And then people don't get results, and they end up literally doing a 180 completely. Like, it is mind-boggling to me that somebody could go, meat is bad, I will not eat it. And then they go, vegetables are bad, I will not eat it, and I'm only going to eat meat. Like, that is the most 180 you could possibly do in your entire life. Like, other than being like atheist to being a priest. Like, it's literally the 180 that people do, and it's wild to me. And I don't, like, somebody that I've never been that like far. Like, I've gone from like, your standard bodybuilding diet with a little bit of veggies. Like, I try to force myself, and now I'm here. So it's a natural progression.
Yeah.
How do you think the average person gets there from vegan to carnivore? Like, based on your experience, how does that happen?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's a little bit trickier, because I had this like term period where I was paleo, right? So for me, it was about, again, just trying to find what made me feel good. I think what's happening is carnivore is just finally getting the recognition it deserves. I think sometimes people try to put carnivore in a box, like how they, put veganism in a box. And the thing about carnivore is, like, we are the antithesis of a box on so many levels, metaphorically, but literally too, right? Like, really, the things that we eat, I mean, unless you want to include like an egg carton, have like boxes that we keep our food, and so for people to go from such one extreme to another, social media, especially now, I think plays a really big part in that, and really just getting educated, and people seeing more and more carnivores popping up. They can't really escape it. They can't escape at least learning about it. Again, I think a lot of people, when they go vegan, um, they might not be going for the same reasons, right, that a carnivore would. So initially they might be going vegan because like it's an environmental thing, right? And they think they're doing the right thing for the environment. And then like they find out later on, actually their diet is maybe not the best for the environment, and that carnivore could be. And so they just kind of educate themselves on this journey. Or like they're having like Kayla Peterson, right? Like she had such autoimmune issues, and other people who are vegans and things like that who have all these autoimmune issues might stumble upon her page. I mean, she's got millions of followers, right? So like they might stumble upon her page and then see the comments, and then like it just kind of evolves from there. But I would say that if anything, social media, for sure, especially like the last year, I feel like carnivore has really, really exploded. So
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And what's funny is that's what people try and knock on it, right? They're like, oh, it's you followed a social media influencer. Oh, you get your information from social media. That's because media outlets literally will not post about it. Like, and if they do, there's always like it's a little bit of a backhanded comment towards it.
That's such a good point, JT. And right as you were saying that, it made me think of how essentially, for example, like raw chicken experiment, he's being, and it's like the guy is just eating raw chicken, like who cares? But like, God forbid, like anybody, outside of our little circle sees what he's doing. And I think that's the thing, right? Like the media wants us to see what they want us to see. And, we're still trying to get out there and expressing. And I think a big, huge part of it, like for someone like me, especially, I don't get paid to do any of this. Like any of the stuff that I don't do any kind of promotions. I don't do I just like, if somebody messages me and is like, hey, I see that you do carnivore. Can you just tell me a little bit more about it? Like, that's just me spending time with people, telling them and educating. I'm not getting anything from them. Why would I lie? Like, why would I want to meet people? And I think more people are questioning the media and are coming to real people like us because they're like, well, they're not making thousands, hundreds, thousands of dollars on what they're telling us. They're just doing this and sharing their experience because they're happy and they want other people to be happy. So I think people are just getting kind of sick of like mainstream, and they're finding other ways to get information. And I think that's really what the carnivore community is all about, is just sharing our love of life. Well, I mean, it's like, it's that simple. And I think people just kind of gravitate toward that naturally. You know, so.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point about the dogmatic part, because that was a big thing that I ran into when I first started. Was like, I call them the protectors of the dogma. And like you guys need to chill. But people come out and they're like, how could you be on such a restrictive diet? And I'm like, okay, so first of all, you don't understand what the whole premise is. Like the whole premise is and this is what blows me away. So in terms of coining the term, the carnivore diet, and kind of laying out the groundwork, like everybody kind of agrees Sean Baker's like at the forefront. Now, is he the person that like started this whole eat only meat? No. Is he, but as far as bringing it to mainstream, putting a title on it, all of that.
Yeah.
And he has come out and said, like he has on video, on social media, said carnivore is not necessarily designed for everybody to do it all the time forever. Like maybe some people need to do it for 6 months. Maybe they need to do it for a year. Maybe they need to do it for 10 years. That's not the point. Like this isn't vegan. The point isn't to be vegan for the rest of your life. The point is to eat these foods and, like you said, see how you feel. And then guess what? It's not so restrictive that you can add in whatever you want. Like, and people are like, oh, but they're not carnivore anymore. That's the point. Like the point is for you to literally figure out, you're stripping it down to the barest of bones to figure out how you feel so that you can then add foods back in. And then people are like, well, if you get bloated from eating beans, then like, bro, you've been bloated your whole life. You just don't know it. Like, stop. And what people find, the reason so many people are on carnivore and they stay on carnivore is because when they start adding foods back in, they go, you know what? I actually feel better doing it the other way. So you know what? I'm not restricting my diet because I can't eat this. I'm restricting it because I don't want to, because I feel better. Heaven forbid I eat the way I eat because I feel better.
Yeah. No, that's exactly. I 100% agree with you. It really comes down to, because people will be like, oh, I'm so sorry you can't eat this. And I'm like, well, I just don't. And it's okay because I ate before I came. I probably wouldn't be. I could eat, and I've got some sausage in my bag, so don't worry about it. Like, I know, like, I'm odd man out all the time, and it's fine, and I don't care because I feel good. And if other people can feel just as good as me eating the way they are, or even better, or whatever their case is, good for them. Like, that's not the main goal here, right? It's like, I know that, like, when I go off of it, and I have, and I probably will again, um, it was fun, in the moment. I usually feel pretty awful afterwards, kind of like a food hangover. I accept it, I move on, and I go back to my favorite foods. And it honestly, for me, it reinforces carnivore. So, like, you know, back in November, I was in Key West, and I was with my daughters, and they were like, "We really want some fudge," and I was like, "Ooh, fudge." And so I had some fudge with them, and I was like, "Okay." And then I was kind of over it, and I felt kind of terrible that night, and I just kind of groggy, and I was like, okay." And then the next day, I just went right back to, you know, the normal things that I eat, but I didn't beat myself up over it. It's not like I would punish myself the same way that I used to, because food used to be like a reward and a punishment. And I think that that's another thing that carnivore really helps people with, or it can, is you look at food now as your fuel source. You look at food, like, don't get me wrong, again, like, I love bacon and burgers with some cheese on it. And I'm so thankful that the things that really nourish me also taste really yummy. But I don't do it just for the sake of doing it, right? Because it makes me feel good. And those are just, I feel lucky. I feel so fortunate. And if I can influence others, great. But I will tell you this. It's really difficult for me sometimes to, like, sit and watch about this hurts, bothering me, the chips, and it takes everything inside of me. You think about, like, what you're eating that might be causing these issues. I don't want to be that person in the room. And because I really try not to push it. People will ask me, and I'm like, "Oh, I love talking about my diet. I'll talk about it all day if you want me to." But I don't want to, like, drill people with it or make them feel guilty or make them feel bad. Because food can do that. Um, and if somebody projects onto me thinking that I think I'm better than them because of the way I eat, that's on them. That's because that's definitely not me. I just do what I have to do, but sometimes, like, I'm like, "Oh, I just stop eating the crap. I probably feel better." Uh, it's Yeah, it can be challenging, but at the same time, very rewarding. And now I find, like I was saying earlier, like, if I go somewhere, I know if I need to eat beforehand. I just kind of prepare myself. You just kind of learn, and it becomes the norm. It's not as restrictive, I guess. The point, like, it really has opened up more opportunities, I think, and to be creative, right, and to be prepared. Uh, yeah, but
No,
the food. I mean, like, you make, like, these gourmet meals, and I'm always like you and, like, Courtney, like, I'm like, "Oh, look at how cute they are with their, like, flip a steak." I'm like, that's all I need to do, and I'm good, uh, because to me it's so easy. You can make it complicated. You can make it fancy. You can do all these things. I saw Carnitary. She's making, like, carnivore cannolis, and I'm like, "Oh, that's adorable." I would never take the time to do that. Like, if she wants to invite me over and have some, otherwise, not so much. Like, that's just, I don't like to cook or bake or really much of that. So this is also so convenient for me. It just fits in my world, in my space. So.
I completely agree, and it's so funny when people talk about restrictive. They're like, you cut out. First of all, it's cut out an entire food group, and the only thing I can think of is, okay, so people will preach moderation, like the dose makes the poison, and moderation and just don't overeat and all this. I'm like, okay, you realize that it takes the same amount of willpower to not eat something as it does to just stop at a moderate amount. Like there's no difference. It's actually, I think it's actually harder because these foods that you're allowing in moderation are literally engineered for A, a dopamine hit, and B, to continue for you to eat them. It's literally umami, which is the fifth sensory taste that they decided to put in there, which was founded and then marketed as MSG. That's literally what it is. It is designed to get you to go, ooh, I want more. And they don't even hide it. What is the Lay's or the Pringles slogan? Once you pop, you can't stop. They literally tell you, we are making this as difficult as possible for you to stop eating them. So what's harder, me just not to eat them or me to only eat 5 or like whatever it is? Like that's not, it's still the same thing. So why not just not eat it? Because I know full well what's going to happen. Even me, I pride myself on being able to be very disciplined and not stray off a diet if I'm doing it. But I know damn well that as soon as I start eating it, I go, this is exactly my thought process. Well, I already fucked it up, so I might as well just keep going, right? At the end of the day, I wasn't supposed to eat this. I did. So what's the difference if I eat 100 of them versus 2? It's still the same.
Right.
And I am not alone in that. That is like a common thing with people. So you know what? I don't even snack a little bit off of it because that little bit's not going to do anything for me. So why do I need it at all? And it just blows my mind when people are like, it's too restrictive. Like, okay, like restrictive is being obese or bedridden or chronic inflammation. And then that just goes into when people think, when we say feeling better, they're like, oh, you just mean you don't have gut issues. No, I don't. I'm 37. I played college baseball. I've had 4 surgeries. I woke up, I was 22 years old, and I would wake up feeling like I got ran over by a bus after weekend doubleheaders. Like that was my life for a very long time, all the way up until recently. Me waking up and feeling like I got ran over by a truck is not abnormal. I have, I only have a portion of my meniscus in both knees. Me having knee pain is pretty normal. Me going to like squat and being like, oh, my knee or oh, my back. That was like life. And that's totally normal for everybody, especially like ex-athletes. Me being able to wake up and not have to go, oh, the old like bent over old man rub my knees. That is feeling better. And guess what? I feel that way when I don't eat all the crap that I used to eat. And yes, vegetables are included.
Yeah. 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 No, I'm right there with you. I mean, I was told by my doctor that I would probably never lift heavy again. I just hit a 285 deadlift last month. Oh, and I'm not saying that like, I don't every once in a while, like I tweak my a little bit, doing some cleans. I miss, and like I have a desk job, so typing, but like I'm telling you, it's nowhere near what I know what it would have been if I was still eating essentially standard American diet or even a gluten-free Whole30 type diet. I know that for especially like if I'm really strict, like if I cut all the dairy, I will feel like a superhuman. Like it's almost sometimes, and I want to bring up something that you touched on, JT, and that's that dopamine hit. And I think one of the things that carnivore can do to someone is essentially change their mind shift. Well, maybe it's not essentially changing their mind shifting, but it's like now you need to find other things to get that dopamine hit. Right. So like for carnivores, because say, you weren't maybe as athletic as you wanted to be because you felt so terrible. Now you're hitting the gym, getting the dopamine that you need to get at the gym instead of say from your like Pringles, right? Like now focus that and what you need.
I'm gonna pause you off real quick. Gotta go take care of the little one real fast.
Yeah.
All right, come on, buddy. Oh. Oh, sure. Trying to keep the little one entertained with shows.
Oh, yeah.
I cut you off on dopamine hits.
Okay, yeah. So I think what's important is, you have to be prepared, I guess, for so much more time in your life. Prepare. I mean, right? Like it would be like the funniest commercial. Well, I've seen some people put reels out like, "Oh, carnivore diet's terrible. I feel amazing." Right? It's kind of like that kind of thing, but I would almost take it a step further and say, be prepared to find healthy substitutes for the way in which you've used food perhaps in the past as a means to entertain, get the dopamine hit, whatever the case is. You need it. It forces you to really find your passions, and I will even take it one more step further. I definitely don't want to get too much into like personal life, but I will say that be ready that if you are in any kind of relationship, whether it's romantic, it could be between a parent, it could be a friendship, a boss, whatever it is, get ready. Just prepare yourself for the amount of confidence that you're going to start to get if you are in an abusive relationship, or if you are in a kind of relationship one-sided or transactional. Be ready to like get woke. Like you will wake up and you will realize, wow, this person is really toxic. Like you almost start like, and you will start to use like better hair products, better skin products, better makeup. You'll want to evolve. Like you will want to get so much toxicity out of your life that even people end up as part of that. So I'm just saying, like with carnivore, just get ready, because it's not like your body's not just going to change. You're not just going to feel amazing. It's going to take you to a whole nother level how you view people. And I mean that in a positive way, because you will start to see, I don't need these people for these dopamine hits, or I don't need these people to fill this gap, right? That maybe perhaps was your motivations before. Like for me, like I started to really find my passions, and really what I want out of life, and how much I wanted to cultivate the friendships that I had, and how much I appreciated people, but also too how I was able to shut people out in a very healthy way. So it's almost like I wasn't prepared for that piece, right? Like I heard all these other things that like inflammation, all that, like gut issue, blah, blah. But nobody really talks about the toxicity, like how it just extends beyond the diet, and how you just want to be a healthier person all around. So it it would be interesting. I'd like to see if more carnivores would talk about this. If more carnivores have experienced, like, say, an abusive relationship, they went carnivore, they realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm in this abusive relationship again, any kind. I got out of it because of carnivore. And I do feel that a diet, because we talk about how, like for me, a burger is like my antidepressant. If I start to feel a little sad, I'm like, I'm gonna go eat a burger, see how I feel. If I'm still sad, then I know it's like something really serious that I'm really sad about, and I can actually process it better. Because I know at that point, okay, I'm not just hangry. I'm not just like, I don't just need food right now. I've satisfied all of my carnal needs. Something else is going on here. And so that's where carnivore really helped me realize a lot of things in my life, and things that I had to prioritize and get better, and let go of certain things that were not healthy for me beyond just food. So it's essentially transform your life. And I will say that it has transformed my life. The good news is, which can also possibly be bad news, is it's been trial and error. I'm finding that I would perhaps still try to do things that I've done in the past, and it just didn't work for me. And I'm like, I just have to let it go. And carnivore, again, I feel because of the clarity, because I don't have the mind fog, that I'm able to like really sit down with myself and self-reflect and be like, yeah, that's got to go. And that's okay. I still have steaks and burgers, so I'm okay.
No, it's for sure, because
Right?
when you take out the highs and lows that food gives you, right? And for anybody who says like food's not addictive, like you literally, alcohol is not addictive. It's addictive in our brain. Like our brain becomes addicted to it, which is the exact same thing that your food does. I will fight somebody on this all day long if you want to talk about it being an addictive substance. But when you take that out and you have like just this even keel, and then you realize, you're like, man, like I just have like even keel energy. And then you start to realize that just by removing some simple foods, for me, it was vegetables. As soon as I removed vegetables, I stopped bloating. And I'm like, okay, so what happens if I now remove this? And then it gets better. And like people talk about being red pilled. This is literally what it is. You take the red pill, like in the Matrix, and you go, wait a minute. I actually I legit feel better. And then you keep going into it, and then you realize that you sleep a little bit better. And then because you sleep a little bit better, you feel like you want to move a little bit more. And then you realize that it's easier to work out. And then all of a sudden it turns into the beginning where Neo's like, what the am I doing? And then he's sitting in there in the chair and he's like, I know Kung Fu more. I want more. And that's literally what you do. And then you realize that, okay, well, maybe there's these other toxic things, like you said, that are in my life that can make me feel better. And then all of a sudden you're just down this whole red pill and people are like, it's not the way you eat. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the start. Like, and yes, it is. That's the basis of everything, because I feel better. Like I'm in a better place mentally because I'm not lethargic, because I didn't sleep like crap, because all of these things, and it starts with your diet.
And you really, you hit it right there with sleep, right? So many people struggle with sleep, and it could be other outside factors. Might not even necessarily be the diet in and of itself, right? But the diet is not helping. So when you go carnivore and the outside world is still what it is, but inside you are just taking care of the mechanisms that you need to sleep. And so you do just naturally get better sleep eating carnivore in general. Like even if, again, the circumstances haven't changed. And that in and of itself can bring clarity to so many. So then you can start affecting or changing, or at least changing your perspective of what's happening on the outside, right? So it comes down to control, right? And we know that at the end, yeah, like discipline is control. That we can control what we put into our bodies. We can't so much control what's going on in the outside world, but we can control our perspective of it. And I believe carnivore helps you better deal with what life will throw at you because of the clarity, because you're sleeping better, because you're physically feeling better. My children, all four of my children are adopted. And I get that question all the time. Were you just not able to have kids? Did you just you know, and it's like, no, I probably was. I never really honestly tried. I never really wanted to birth children. I wanted to have children, which is hence why I adopted. But I think a big part of that, truly, JT, is because of how terrible I felt all the time. Because, if say like at 13, and that's like when your hormones start to hit and everything. And so like I believe your gut health has a lot to do with your hormone imbalance. And I had all these issues as a young girl all the way up till really like about a year ago, because it took me about 2 years to heal from just all of those female issues that I was having. Um, that, I I was just like, there's no way I think I could ever be pregnant feeling the way that I feel. And I really attribute, I mean, now I'm 40. Even though I feel really great, I don't want to birth children now at this point in my life. And I'm very, I love my kids and that whole bit. But I really think that when I look back on it all, it's like, well, why was I so adamant? Because it's not like I was scared. Um, like to birth children or to have a baby necessarily, but I mean, I feel like anybody is, right? Like that's just natural parenthood. But more so than anything, who would want to have something growing inside of them when they already feel like something's growing inside of them? And that's how I always felt. I just always felt so terrible because my stomach always hurt. It was always bloated. I just always felt so and never really thought, I just thought that, oh, it's hereditary. I'm always going to feel like this. It's just luck of the draw, whatever. But I had an idea because I did get off the medication when I went paleo. So cutting out the carbs definitely helped in that capacity, all the grains, things like that. But I mean, even then, wasn't 100% and was still kind of like, I don't think I'd want to do this with my body. But yeah, I mean, like if I had discovered carnivore maybe like 10, 15 years ago, oh my gosh, probably have like 20 kids. Right? You feel so good, and like you feel good, and like whatever. But yeah, now so women who especially women, like if anybody's listening and they're in their 20s, say, or even their 30s, and you're like thinking about having kids, but you're worried about maybe like gut issues, things like that. Try carnivore. And don't be afraid. There's a women I see in the carnivore community that are, eating some other foods while they're pregnant. I mean, there's so many people that you can follow to kind of figure out like, what works best for you. But I even think like, gosh, what if my mom was like carnivore when, I and you like, I mean, gosh, who knows? Like sometimes I'm really like, wow, I really wonder if like certain things would be different. But if there's women out there, I know like getting pregnant's getting harder. Testosterone levels are going down in men. Women are dealing with more and more issues, more and more getting on birth control because of those issues. They do alleviate some of the pain and things like that, but the long-term effects are not worth it. That considering carnivore, just like if you are thinking of having kids, I mean, I think it would be so wise to look into it at least, especially if you're dealing with things that I had to deal with, and that made it where I just was like, there's no way I'd ever want to be pregnant and feel like I said, as bad as I felt before. I just couldn't even imagine. But like now, I I think I could do it, but again, it's that time. That ship has sailed at this point in my life. Um, not on a physical, like just certain things in my life now. But yeah, I mean, it opens up all of these windows that you wouldn't even realize. And so I guess just like the best thing I can say is be prepared for life, because it's going to come at you, but like in this really fascinating way. Be Just be prepared to like start cutting things out and introducing healthy things in. It's quite the journey. It's pretty awesome.
I think the majority of people don't want to take on such a restrictive diet because they think they feel fine, right? And I actually watched, it was maybe about 2 months ago, a vegan lady was like, yeah, I'm older and Baker did a response to it. She's like, I'm older, and so of course, like I have, like some aches and pains and this and that, and like we're so used to like this is status quo, right? You bloat after you eat to the point that you don't even know you're bloating, right? We still like the joke, stretchy pants at Thanksgiving. Like I'm eating, like right now I'm eating 4,000 calories a day. Like I'm forcing myself to eat, and I will bloat a little bit, but it's because I'm like, I'm not hungry and I'm like still shoveling my face. And I recognize that, but I still go in the mirror and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not bloated, but I feel bloated.
You feel right.
Before, like, and this is just back to like bodybuilding, like I was joking in bodybuilding. You wake up first thing in the morning, you snap your progress pics because it's the only time of the day you're going to have abs because you are going to bloat so much throughout the day that it literally looks like you gained 10 pounds during the day.
Yeah.
So you do it first thing in the morning and you're like, got it. And it's like, but you don't have to feel like that's not normal. But that's just normal. Like aches and pains are normal. Some stomach digestions. I got my Tums here all the time because, some foods make me, feel a little, but that's normal. Or, I know I'm going to eat this and then I'm going to feel a little or I'm going to eat this and I'm going to be tired afterwards. And, don't go swimming for 30 minutes after you eat. And just like, it's so normal. And we think this is just normal life. And when you talk about being prepared, like go sit down and eat a 2-pound ribeye and pop up and go, all right, cool. And then just go about your day and you're not bloated and you don't feel sluggish and you don't feel like you're going to, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, are you telling me for all these years, these things weren't normal?
I know, it's mind blowing. That's what I'm saying. Like back to like the pregnancy thing, when you mentioned the bloating and like, that was me. Like I would look in the mirror and I'd look like I was already pregnant. I was like, I can't even imagine like what I would look like. What was pregnant? Like that was my waking life, was just constantly feeling that way. And you, and I'm almost positive somebody else talked about this, but you also find out that lactose intolerance, you actually find out that dairy is your friend, or can be, when you go carnivore. Now, again, everybody's body's different. Everybody reacts in different ways. But I have found like this beautiful balance, and really knowing how much dairy I can eat in a day and consume, or even what kind. Because like cheese will bloat me sometimes if I overindulge. It also depends on the kind of cheese. I mean, there's just so many different factors, but like I will tell you one thing that cheese no longer does, like make me feel sick the way that it did. You're right. Like when people say I'm lactose intolerant, it takes everything inside of me and be like, no, you're pretty much just like food intolerant. Like most of the foods you're eating, not tolerant of. And so the dairy, just like on top of it, it's just like too much for you. It's like overload. Right. And when you think about that too, think of like all the variety of foods we have now. Like just even the options, I always call it like, the cereal aisle syndrome. Like anytime I have to, make a decision and there's like 50 million things that I could choose from, like walking down the cereal aisle, right? The good news is zero now. Like I don't have to worry about it. But like even vegetables, like you think about like the variety, like you could, in a week, somebody might end up eating like 100 different foods. Are our stomachs really capable or conditioned for that much variety? It just doesn't seem like this is how humans evolved, right? And then like all of a sudden you have modernity and you have all of these options and you have all of these things that you can put in your stomach, and there's just no way that that's normal. And that really, at the end of it all, that diet ends up, like you're saying, being the restrictive one because it makes you sick. When you limit your foods, you find the foods that work for you, you find the foods that satiate you, you're good. And your stomach's happy. And you're not throwing like all these different things at it. I mean, it's overstimulation, right? Like I walk in somewhere and if there's like 50 million things going on, I want to walk right out. Our stomachs are doing the same thing. You're putting like 20, 30, 40 different foods in it a day. It's like, what the hell is going on? Just food. And when I say 20, 30, 40 things, I legitimately mean that, because think about the ingredients in like bread, for example. You go buy bread, there's like 10 different ingredients. So there's 10 different foods that you're putting in your body first thing in the morning, maybe, or in the afternoon for lunch, right? Like you're not giving your body, you're overstimulating. We're just constantly overstimulated. I think that's the really cool thing about carnivore, and it brings you back. Like it made me want to go and process a cow. Something so simple, so basic, so natural. One ingredient, cow. It's like, right? Like it's one ingredient. How, like one food. If I just were to eat steak and burgers all day, which essentially is what I do, I mean, I'm consuming maybe what, 2, 3 different ingredients a day. I'm not overstimulating. So now I'm able to like saying, be prepared for life. Like you're going to want to go and do like 15 million things. You're going to be so active. You're going to want to just find your passions, find your hobbies, work out. Like, these two, the carnivore and working out, just go so hand in hand. And I did not start off working out when I started carnivore. I decided to just like, it naturally evolved where I was like, okay, now I want to go join a CrossFit gym now. Like I'm ready. So yeah, it's like, I just, that word restrictive, that just makes me sad. Like, I would say that this is honestly like the most eye-opening, opportunistic diet that there is out there. Because again, like your life doesn't have to revolve around the food anymore. You're not essentially like so bound to the addictions, essentially, right? Like you're eating to satiate, you're eating to feel good, and you can move on with your life.
Exactly. I'll end it on this one because this is one of my favorites. We're supposedly the smartest species on this planet, and we are the only species confused about what it is we're supposed to eat.
Oh,
Anyway.
it's such a good point. Oh no. Yeah, you don't have a shark going, I don't know, maybe I should eat plankton today.
So where can people find you on social media, B?
Yeah, so I really only do Instagram. So Girl_Gone_Carnivore. If you want to follow me, great. Feel free to DM me. I'm here to answer any questions anybody has. I love sharing my story and I love helping people. And like I said, I just do it to do it because I can't help not share how much my life.
And just a caveat for anybody who does follow her, she's going to repost a whole bunch of stuff about some dude eating chicken raw. So if you have a weak stomach, just be careful.
Yeah, I started on day one. John actually lives like 10 minutes away from me.
He started following me on my
Did he?
My little experiment. He's like a man of science, and I was like, yes.
Oh, I know we're out of time, but like just the whole I love all of this. Like just just so raw, no pun intended. Totally intended. But the raw is fascinating. I love it. I just absolutely love it. It's great.
100%. Appreciate everybody listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, go give Girl Gone Carnivore a follow, and thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.